Hello everyone. So today's video is about comparing Express Entry 2025 draws versus 2024. And I'm going to do some predictions, and which are basically, I would say, guesses. What are the key takeaways? And before that, there is a disclaimer. So this is only for informational purposes, should not be construed as legal advice. And if you want one, you can check the description. You will have link to book an appointment or discuss your things with me, and we're happy to do that. And don't forget to subscribe and like this channel. So I have created so many videos. And today's video, I have chosen the subject because there are a lot of people who have a lot of anxiety as to whether they have a chance or not and what other pitfalls they can avoid, right? So without further ado, let's dive right into it. And let me share my screen with you and see if that helps. Okay, let's go to this specific slide, right? So what do we see here, right? So these are all the express entry draws which has happened. On the left side is for 2025 till the day I'm creating this video, which is today, September 20th, 2025 and 2024. Now, if you look at this year, right, we have total number of invitations is 65,000, give or take, right? And under that, if you see there's the Canadian Experience Class draws has happened, and there are PNPs, which are the usual suspects, which is provincial nominee programs, right? They always have to happen. And then you have basically 3 or 4 categories has happened, right? Out of 6. So you have educational draws have happened, which I think happened twice. And then you have French language proficiency draws. You had healthcare and social service occupation draws, and you have a trade occupation draw, which happened very recently, right? But we're still missing on the agriculture draw. We're still missing on the STEM draw. Okay. And if you see, majority of these draws actually happened in French, right? So around 40% of all invitations have gone to French language proficiency. And out of that, I've heard that the single biggest beneficiary of that is people from Cameroon, as they speak French. So even that is something that community is benefiting. And you also see that the second biggest one is Canadian Experience Class, right, which is 32%, which is surprising given that they had a different target. So the target for this year for Canadian Experience Class was around 82,000, and for all the categories put together was 41,000. Now, when I'm talking about 82,000, 41,000, give or take, that is the number of people like permanent resident, right? This does not actually mean that is the number of invitations, because in one invitation, what if a person submits an application and there are 2 people on that invitation, like a husband and a wife, or there might be 4 people, which could be husband, wife, maybe 2 kids, or there could be only single applicant, right? Maybe a young person who never got married. So you also have to look into that particular thing. For this year, right, if the run rate continues, right, so approximately in a single month, the average number of draws which are happening, invitations which are happening, is around 7,700, give or take, right? Now, if this were to continue for half of September and October, November, December, you can expect another 27,000 invitations for this year. And if you see the run rate for province as well, provincial nominee program is much lower as compared to what it was last year, right? Last year it was quite a lot, but that's for the whole year, 15,000. So this year it's around 7,000, right? And if you can see again, the number of kind of invitations per month is around 800, give or take. So you can expect another 3,000 in PNP and 24,000 in CC and category. And my guess is that if this were to go on, right, we do not kind of expect the scores to go down a lot, right? So we'll talk a little bit more about that in my next slide. But now let's see if we compare 2025 with 2024. If you see agriculture last year also, there were only 150. I'm not expecting this year anything more than that or something very similar, because the only occupation in agriculture is a butcher. And then you have STEM occupations. Now, STEM occupations somehow they have not did any kind of draw for this year, right? There has to be at least a draw, right? Another thing about STEM occupation is that they have really cut down on the T part of STEM. So what used to happen was there were many technology occupations. There were like software developers, there were web developers, uh, you know, computer information systems, and there's so many professions there. Those already have been cut, and they've added the insurance advisors and and they retain some other things. Now, because of the insurance advisor, I'm guessing the scores again will be very high, similar to what has happened in the trade occupation. Now, trade occupation, if you look into the lowest score we have for trade occupation this year is 505. The same for the last year was 430. Just see the difference, right? It has become very difficult to even get into trade occupation, right? And one of the reasons could be, first of all, they expanded the number of trades from 10 trade occupations in 2024 to 25 this year, but they also added like cooks, right? And we know that there's so many people who have experience as a cook, right? And so that is another thing where the trade has occupation draw has been super disappointing for the folks, because it doesn't look like a very promising thing. And even if they come up with another draw, the scores, I'm not sure, will come down very heavily, because, maybe it'll come like 480 or 90, but doesn't look like a very promising this year, unless next year or maybe after this draw, they do something about the number of occupations they have listed in this. And, that is something which has to be looked at. Healthcare occupations is 470 was the minimum CRS score for this year. And the surprising one, which is really, really surprising to me, is health in the education occupations. There are two draws, and one of the draw, the score was 462, which is a very good score, right? It's for people who are even in Canada, maybe did an advanced diploma or something like that, maybe 1 or 2 years experience, maybe your brother, sister here. That they to get into this kind of occupation is at this particular score is doable, right? So they are the ones which we think are is good. And then if you look at the Canadian experience class, the minimum score was 518, which is unexpectedly high. So most people were expecting that the scores would touch around 500, but it hasn't happened so, right? And if you compare to the last year, you see that the last year, the CRS was for Canadian experience class was 507, right? It wasn't low either. And a lot of people expected this year because they were categorically focusing on the Canadian experience class. But my another conjecture is that since they have many other category-based occupations, most of the people in the category-based occupations are already people who are eligible under the Canadian experience class. Maybe they're now looking at the totality that they're getting a sizable number of people who are also getting invitations under the category are also Canadian experience class. So in a way, it's kind of fulfilling both the objectives at the same time. The next number of invitations in which is left for another 3.5 months for this year is around 24,000 in CC and category based draws. How many CECs is just anybody's guess. Maybe I would say 16 to 18,000. That's my wild guess, and another 6,000 maybe in categories. Right now, these are the predictions. Right now, if you see on the right side, this is the immigration level plan, right? So this is what I was talking about. So that for 2025, the total plan number of immigrants they're looking for is 395,000, right? But we are focused on the economic immigration. Economic immigration, even including Quebec, their plan is around 232,000 people, not invitations. And out of that, the federal economic priorities. So these economic priorities essentially means category-based, draws. It's like French category, STEM category, healthcare, agri, trades, education. So all these put together, they were looking at 41,700 people, right, to immigrate. And out of that, they were anyway looking at most of them, 75% to be French, right? So that's what have actually happened as well. Like the most of the invitations have gone to French, right? If you see French is around 30,000. So 30 out of 40 is almost like 75%, right? And then you have in Canada focus. So in Canada focus is people who are already inside Canada, who are probably looking at the Canadian experience class, who have 1 year experience in Canada. And that's what they're primarily looking at. So that is something I was expecting much more draws, but that has not happened. That's why the score for CEC is expected to remain high, which is around 515 or above. And even if you look at the latest CRS score distribution, you see that there are still 24,830 people in the pool with a score of 500 and above. Now, important thing to understand here is that even if there are 24,830 people, the question then comes, if the score were to drop, there are two things which has to happen. First is, the two main factors. One is that how many people are getting added to the pool every month, right? Let's say on an average of 3,000 people above 500 are getting added, then the score can only come down if the number of invitations for that month is more than 3,000, right? So if 3,000 are adding to the pool, unless there are draw sizes more than 3,000, it's very, very hard to get the score down. And there's also been some fluctuations. Like previously, it was growing at even higher rate, to like 5,000. Suddenly, it starts growing at a slightly slower rate, maybe around 100 number of people, 100 people adding every day, approximately 3,000 every month, right? So now if the draw size is like 5,000 or 6,000 for CC in the next, I would say 3.5 months, there is a probability the score can come down to like 515 or, so. So the another thing is related to the trade draw. Trade draw has been a tragedy. So because of so many people in the cooks in that particular trade, having them added, so now the chances of the cutoff coming down to 480 or less, which is what people were expecting, is I highly doubt that will happen at all, right? And there are a lot of people who are like other RCSC consultant. I think I remember one Mandeep Lidhar, who did do a lot of ATIP notes and things like that. A very smart guy. So he got some notes, and where he was kind of mentioning that even the immigration is kind of aware of that issue, where they're saying that this pool, which is for trades, like the core trades like plumber, electrician, the number of people like those were very less, but it's primarily filled by cooks. So this is something which is in the attention of IRCC. I don't know whether they're going to do something about it or not. Not sure about that. Another thing we know is that French is a dominant factor, right? French will continue to be a dominant factor because they're increasing the quota for French every year from this year onwards. So you never know, people who are going to be learning French, that probably would be a good thing to do from the immigration perspective, because the amount of score you get by learning French are very high, right? Approximately, give or take with CLB 7, and if you have really good score English as well, easily people can get around 62 extra points. Plus the cutoff score for French is very, very low. If you see the last draw for French, the lowest score recorded this year was 379, and for last year was 336, right? So it means that it's a very, very, if your CLB level 7 and you happen to qualify, you will get lucky sometime, right? Another one is the education category. I would say that people who can't get into French, somehow the education category has been, for me, a clear winner. And the reason is very simple. I never expected the scores to come down so much. Like the last draw was at 462. The problem with the education, which I see, is that in most places right now for this year, education has been, one of the best things that's happened to so many people. But now a lot of people are trying to get it becoming ECEs. A lot of people trying to do short-term courses like ECAs while on a work permit, which might not be the correct way to do it anyways. But because of that, and also because of the home sport worker pilot and things like that, like people are learning like becoming like ECA and trying to do online courses, this and that. So those kind of things, there could be a glut, right? Because this is a low-hanging fruit. Anytime there's a low-hanging fruit, I foresee that people kind of jump onto the bandwagon, and it's quite possible that education category may see very high scores next year, considering so many people are now looking at this specific thing. But there are so many nuggets, there are so many things, there are certain good occupations which people don't want to focus on, because this suddenly becomes so dominant and everybody's mind is into these kind of things. So for example, a lot of people basically look at, I want to become, I think the top 3 things people want to do is right now is, I would say personal sport worker is 1, becoming EC or EC is 2nd, and pharmacy assistant could be another. These are the 3 people are looking at. Now, what are the key takeaways? So one is that French is here to stay, right? You can't get wrong with French. That's what it looks like. Then there are many, many strategies. You can, if you want to book an appointment, you can discuss with me. There are many strategies people can adopt. some is already known, like you can combine Canadian foreign experience, language scores. Sometimes if you go bandwagon, and it's quite possible that education category may see very high scores next year, considering so many people are now looking at this specific thing. But there are so many nuggets, there are so many things, there are certain good occupations which people don't want to focus on, because this suddenly becomes so dominant, and everybody's mind is into these kind of things. So for example, a lot of people basically look at, oh, I want to become, I think the top three things people want to do is right now is I would say personal support worker is one, becoming EC or EC is second, and pharmacy assistant could be another. These are the three people are looking at. Now, what are the key takeaways? So one is that French is here to stay, right? You can't get wrong with French. That's what it looks like. Then there are many strategies. You can, if you want to book an appointment, you can discuss with me. There are many strategies people can adopt. Some of it's already known, like you can combine Canadian foreign experience, language scores. Sometimes if you go slightly above CLB 9 or 9 or above 9, it will have a outsized impact on your scores. Education, right? A lot of people don't think that, oh, they do a 2-year diploma. Maybe you can do, an advanced diploma or 3 years bachelor's. Very, very beneficial to you for many ways, right? There are many programs which specifically ask for bachelor's, and there are 3-year bachelor's available at certain public colleges as well. So would be a great idea. Fitting into a category is no brainer, right? So I think a lot of people, they say, oh, you know what, I want to get masters. I want to get into my field and this and that. Yeah, sure. If PR is not your number one priority, then that's fine. But if your PR is number one priority, and then you might want to see if you can get into one or at least 6 months or more in an occupation which is kind of your interest as well, but you also fit into one of those in demand categories. That would be a kind of a game changer for you, right? Because to get into category other than the French, you just need 6 months of full-time continuous experience in the last 3 years in Canada or outside Canada. Plus there are some other things as well, or it could be part-time as well. And then there are a lot of people also looking into gaining foreign experience while being in Canada. So those are very advanced strategies, can work, but it has to be explained really well. Then people are also looking at the certificate of qualification. That's also is something which is if done very strategically, and could be a possibility as well. And my general thing to everyone is that don't screw up your applications. Don't and think very and plan ahead of time, right? So the best time to plan is while you are a student in Canada, while you're just starting your job, because that is the time when you need to know what would be a great path for you, right? And so I have seen like people making rookie mistakes, like in reference letters, certain information is missing, copying knock codes and their main duties from the website. There's so many of those mistakes people happen, not using the right template, error in calculating experience. They don't care about dividing their experience if were not working a number of hours per month, so they kind of ignore all of that. Any kind of unauthorized study can really put you back, right? Even like, for example, you're on a work permit, it sometimes says unless authorized, you're not allowed to work in a certain academic vocational enroll in that program. But people are still doing in-person programs of 4 months, 5 months. That is could be a huge red flag, because at the end of the day, it's not. I've seen that there is a lot of communication even from IRCC where this says you can do less than short-term program. But the problem is IRCC officer if they reject your application based on those ground, and if you go to a court may side with the law. If the law says that you can only do a program while you were authorized upon entry, and if the law says that whatever guidance and other things might be coming your way may not cut it, right? So it's very, very important to understand what you can or not do. Another small tip for that, you guys, is that for people who are doing distance education, right? So when people say online education, so online education actually means completely online. So online education actually means like education which is done uh, completely online. There are no labs for you to attend. There is no exam for you to attend in person. Even the exam has to be online. So that would be a, something which is online. But there are so many things which you may not be aware of, which are very, very important. And then ignoring PNPs, right? If you know that you just have been a grade 12 student and you have 2 years diploma, I mean, focusing on some of these PNPs uh, from the get-go will make much more sense than rather than going through the express entry route, right? Or choosing certain provinces where the program, and you have to look at the trend, right? So there are so many things which you need to take care of when you are deciding. And if you are somebody who just have a very little information, you may consider booking an appointment with an immigration specialist or somebody who knows about the immigration, who's a legal licensed practitioner like myself. So that's it for my side. If you like this video, please do subscribe to the channel and share with anyone whom you think would find it valuable. So thank you so much and have a wonderful day.